So today I'm gonna make some quick introductions of the folks who are joining me today to deliver this webinar. Then that's followed by a quick refresher on the Student Opportunity Act, very quick since I know a lot of you are quite familiar with this. And then we'll just do an overview of the FY26 SOA Plan Progress Report, Plan Progress Report process. We'll talk about what's the same and what's different this year. We'll do a walkthrough of the template, talk a little bit about resources and supports for districts, and then just let you know what to expect after your progress reports are submitted in April. So just quickly, several of my team members from the Office of Effective Practices are here. I want to mention in particular Moira Connolly, who is going to be manning the or monitoring the chat for me during the webinar. And then I also want to introduce Darcy Fernandez, who is DESE's Senior Associate Commissioner for Specialized Supports. She may not be here yet or be able to join us, but we're hoping she will be. And Lola Shoyinka, a member of Darcy's team, who is coordinating aspects of DESE's implementation of the Mass Leads Act, and she'll be presenting on what's different this year. All right. So, the quick overview. The Student Opportunity Act was passed in 2019 with the overarching goal of ensuring that every student in the Commonwealth has access to a high-quality public education, regardless of the zip code that they live in. And it has two key components. One is there were fiscal changes made to Chapter 70 funding. And since the foundation, I'm saying it wrong, but there was a study done saying that the state isn't investing enough overall in education. And since 2021, the state has added well over $1 billion in education funding for the Chapter 70 program. And this year, let me see if I can find this. The FY27 budget proposal that the governor submitted recently includes an increase in aid to districts of $241.8 million, which is a 3.3% increase. Also, as a lot of you know, there was a new funding formula introduced. It was designed to provide additional funding for students with disabilities, students who are English learners, districts that have a high poverty base in their districts, and there was some additional money put in around the underfunding, to address issues around underfunding the state's group insurance commission, health insurance for employees. On the policy side, and this is where the legislation addresses the SOA plans and the progress reports that we'll be talking about today. SOA plans are due every 3 years. This is the second year of progress reporting on the most recent plan submitted. And before I go any further, I just want to address again some ongoing misconceptions about SOA plans. We often get the question, does my district need to do a plan? Why are we doing this? We get little or no additional Chapter 70 funding. And the answer to that is yes. The plans are driven by your analysis of disparities for student groups in your district, the underlying causes of those disparities, and selecting and implementing evidence-based approaches to address those disparities. And it's our shared work to close those gaps. And every district in the Commonwealth is required to develop a plan and implement it, whether it receives no additional Chapter 70 aid, just a small amount of aid, or a large amount of aid. All right. Oh, just quickly, a second misconception is that we only want you to we only want you to describe to us what you did with any extra funding you may or may have received. That's not really the case. This isn't a grant program. This is just What are you implementing? How are you resourcing it, whether it's from Chapter 70 or local funds? And what are you implementing? And how's the progress? How is progress going for your students over time? And just quickly, the district improvement plan serves as your comprehensive plan that describes the full set of strategies that you're going to implement to support all the students in your district. By contrast, the SOA plan really centers on student groups experiencing disparities. And it describes the key evidence-based strategies you're planning to implement to reduce them. So it's like a subset of typically of what's in a comprehensive district plan. And then here's the SOA plan submission cycle. The first round of plans was due during the pandemic, and there were some glitches during that process, but we're back on a regular cycle, and I've highlighted in green where we are right now. This is the second progress update, reflecting what's going on relative to the plan you submitted to us in FY24, and new 3-year SOA plans will be due in 2027. And without further ado, I'll get to the FY26 SOA plan progress report. These progress reports are due in GEMS by April 1st, 2026. There's a little asterisk because charter schools also develop SOA plans and provide us with progress reports, but theirs are not due until August 1st. So what's the same and what's new? Most of this is going to look very familiar if you worked on the SOA progress reports last year. It'll look very familiar. It includes a summary of progress to date as of academic year 2025-26, and you'll tell us about, what was new in implementation this year. What does early evidence of change look like? What are outcomes looking like for student groups, and how's gap closing coming along? Then you'll tell us about any key changes to your SOA plan since last year. There may not be any, but if there are, this is where you would tell us about them and your stakeholders. And then what are your next steps for implementation in the upcoming academic year, 2026-27? And then finally, there's a strong focus in the SOA Act around parent involvement, parent engagement. And so you'll also tell us briefly about any new activities launched in academic year 25-26, designed to engage families, caregivers, and other stakeholders. So what's new this year? The Mass Leads Act was enacted on November 20th, 2024. And it's got a lot of moving parts. It's a big piece of legislation, but among other things, it requires districts to submit plans to DESE for their strategies for strengthening workforce diversity. DESE's Office of Strategic Initiatives, which is leading this work, is working collaboratively with us and with other external stakeholders as it develops guidance for these plans. I'm going to ask you to hold questions on this until later because Lola Shoyinka, who I mentioned earlier, will be presenting on this and will be available. Hopefully she'll answer a lot of questions and will be available to answer some of them. The one thing I will say is that we are leveraging this year's data collection for the SOA plan progress reports to collect some baseline data or information on what districts are already doing in this, or what they have in the planning stages. And as if I haven't said so already, and I may have, that information is going to be used to inform their process. So just a few technical details before we walk through the template itself. Progress reports will be submitted in GEMS again this year. I expect, I had planned to have it open before this webinar, but there were some glitches. I do expect to have it open tomorrow. And you'll be able to, if you're an SOA plan writer, if you have that designation, you'll be able to start entering data, which leads me to, I said this in the email that went out last week. If you are going to be entering data into the SOA plan, you must be assigned the LEA SOA plan writer role. Your user access administrator can do that. And this, even if you're a superintendent, you have to have this role in order to enter data. So you have a superintendent who is also writing the plan would have two roles: the superintendent who approves it and the SOA plan writer who actually writes the report. I also want to mention that all future SOA plan progress report reminders and updates will be sent via GEMS. And so I'm going to ask folks to make sure be on the alert for SOA reminders and updates. Sometimes I send a notice when a new resource is available, or if there are technical issues with GEMS, or I might send a reminder that that the due date for plans is coming up. I will be sending this slide deck to all superintendents and SOA plan writers in GEMS tomorrow morning. And this could be a test case for you to make sure that you're receiving those emails. So if you don't see it in your inbox, would you please check your spam or junk folders? And if it has landed in there, you may have to ask your IT office to change some of your settings. Another technical thing, I've included a slide in here for quick start instructions for GEMS. I have this because I get a lot of the same questions from districts. They'll call or email and say, I can't get into GEMS. So you're going to log in using your email and password. You select search and application supplement from the drop-down menu. And number 3 is the one that people miss the most often. To do this year's progress report, you have to set the fiscal year to 2026. And then a set of application supplements will appear, and you should pick the one that says SOA Plan Progress Report. Once you click on that, you're going to change the status from not started to application supplement started. Select the section of the plan you want to work on first, and you don't have to go in order, and then type away. And then just remember to save your work at regular intervals. Now, a complete set of instructions for those of you who are very new to GEMS will be available on the SOA District Resources webpage next week. It's still in the process of being updated, but that document includes a set of instructions that will walk you through the GEMS process in considerable detail, and it includes many screenshots that I think you'll find helpful. And then 2 final points, just because they didn't really fit on my other slides. You do not have to have your progress report formally approved by your school committees, but we do encourage you to collaborate with them and share the progress reports with them. And I know from talking to a lot of districts last year that you do that. If you're a priority district, which was one of about, I think it was 17 districts that receive large amounts of Chapter 70 funding, they submitted a very detailed budget when they submitted their original plans. You are not required to submit a budget addendum. Everyone completes the same template. I just want to remind people, you're writing this for your stakeholders, or that's who we encourage you to think of as your primary audience. So this is an opportunity to use this progress report to both celebrate wins, things that are going really well, and acknowledge challenges, because challenges happen when we're putting things into place. We're going to recommend that you keep it succinct, clear, and easy to digest. Don't use a lot of jargon or put acronyms in that people aren't likely to know without having to look them up. Make sure you address all of the evidence-based programs in your plan. You don't have to write a separate section on every single one. Sometimes sometimes 2 EDPs are very distinct. Like if you're doing pre-kindergarten, universal pre-kindergarten, and then something that's related to college and career. Those would obviously be things that make sense to write about separately. But if you are implementing HQIM implementation and introducing and strengthening teacher capacity to use PLCs to support implementation using data-driven improvement cycles, it may make more sense to integrate your narrative into a single summary. Again, you're telling a story here. And finally, I just want to make sure that folks remember to center the narrative on the student groups that are experiencing disparities. This was the single most common reason we sent last year's progress reports back for edits. We are interested in knowing about improvement and what's happening for all students, but because these plans center on how things are changing for student groups experiencing disparities, we want to hear about that in your summaries and updates. This is what you'll see when you open the page. This was from the test site, so I've got a few funky things on here, but you're going to see key evidence-based programs in your plan. Section 1 is the summary of progress to date. Section 2, changes to your plan and next steps in implementation, engaging families, caregivers, and other stakeholders, and then strengthening workforce development through the Mass Leads Act. So that's a GEMS eye view. It'll look a little prettier than that in once you're actually in GEMS. I don't know if you were part of this process last year, you will remember that there was a drop-down menu and we asked you to go back to your original plans and then check off all the EBPs that are in your plan, because that's what districts are going to be writing to. Was probably the second most common reason we sent things back to districts, because there were some of the incorrect boxes were checked and we had to go back and ask districts to fix it. So we worked with our GEMS team, and this year you're going to see a page that actually lists them for you. We found a way to go back into your original plans and pull the list of EBPs. So this is just a reminder for you. Like, here's what your plan says you're working on, and so that's what you're going to be reporting on in the body of the summary update. Oops, did I have anything here? No. So I'm just going to say again, celebrate your wins and provide thoughtful reflection on why you may not be seeing some of your anticipated changes, or celebrate the ones that you are seeing. We talked about this a little bit already. I think I go into detail on all of these. So we anticipate that you'll be using progress monitoring data that you use to monitor the progress of programs and initiatives that you have going on in your district. We expect that you'll use a combination of local and state data sources to complete this section. Section 5 of your SOA plan that you submitted in FY24 lists the metrics you planned to use to monitor progress for each EBP. But these are living plans. You're not required to report on every indicator that was listed there. You may have discovered as you're doing progress monitoring, that's not really telling us as much as we want and what we really need to know. And so you can use other indicators besides the one that you've already listed in your plan. And if you are interested in seeing some recommendations that our program offices made about some local metrics for different EBPs, and we have a link here to the FY24 SOA plan guidance that includes some recommendations beginning on page 10. But these are illustrative and not exhaustive. You'll tell us about what you've been implementing, and you'll be telling us, like, during academic year 25-26, that's the year you're working in, what steps did your district take to launch, expand, or deepen the implementation of each EBP? Highlight some of your key accomplishments, share what's working well, reflect on where you might want to revisit or adjust your approach. Don't tell us about business as usual. We're really interested in what's changing this year, or what's different. It could be launching a new strategy, or maybe you started co-teaching in the 4th grade, and this year you've expanded it to the 5th grade. Again, not just business as usual, and again, make certain that you are addressing how your implementation is addressing the needs of the student groups experiencing disparities. Early evidence of change. Again, you're going to be focusing on this year. It's not that you can't talk about previous years, but we really want to know where you are now for early indicators of change. What are some of the hypothesized shifts that have to happen before you can expect to see changes in student outcomes? Let's say you're implementing new curriculum materials. It takes time for teachers to skillfully implement. So classroom observation data can take stock of progress in using materials and using them well, or you can observe what students are doing differently in the classroom in a systematic way. The student survey data reflect changes in their student perceptions about their classroom experience. Again, I think, if I remember correctly, your original plans had some early evidence of change indicators that you had you had indicated you were thinking of looking at. And then finally, progress in closing disparities. We know that this is what's going to take the longest to be reflected in some of the data we're looking at, but we still want districts to reflect upon what they're seeing now. So we're looking at improvement for the student groups targeted in your plan, reduce disparities for student groups, and then progress towards meeting targets for MCAS, ELA, and mathematics for the lowest performing student group. And I'm going to go into a little more detail on these. Some of you may be familiar with this. I used this graphic last year just to be illustrative. The top line is all students, let's say, and all, as a group, all students are improving. And then in the middle, we have, let's say, English learners, and then students with disabilities at the bottom. We not only want to see that different student groups' performance is improving, but we want to see the gap. If you look at the gap between
Karen, you've muted yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I'm sure I said something absolutely amazing while I was muted. Anyway, move to the next slide. We also want you to reflect upon progress towards meeting targets. For the lowest performing student group, the reason this group is being singled out is because it's what we told the legislature we would be tracking at the state level over time. And we are also asking districts to reflect upon this in their own. So to fulfill this, we're looking at English and math MCAS, and it's how well you're doing towards progressing towards meeting your targets. In your progress report, you would include data from the most recent accountability data. I put a link to the 2025 accountability targets and 2025-27 increments. In the example we provided you last year, we included a table that illustrated how this could be done. We're going to update that, and it will be available on our website next week within the example that we provide for you, so that you can see what we're trying to get at with this particular piece of data. And then briefly reflect on the progress you're making towards meeting those targets. And the one last year that we provided simply said, meeting or exceeding targets, or, we didn't meet the target, but we're making progress towards that. I forget what all of the four categories or 5 categories are that are in there. Section 2. Key changes to your plan and next steps in implementation. This one was pretty short last year. If applicable, tell us about any changes to your SOA plan that stakeholders should be aware of. Like, there may be substantial shifts in your approach to how you're looking at how you're implementing the EBP. There might be budget changes that you hadn't anticipated when you wrote either positive or negative. You might have gotten a big grant. There may be budget shortages this year. I'm looking to see if there are heads nodding on that one. And whether you're dropping or adding an EBP. We actually recommend against doing that within this plan. I would recommend just writing about the ones that are there. But if there's a compelling reason for wanting to add or drop, maybe reach out to me before you do that. And then we want to know what you're going to be doing in 2026-27 to expand, deepen, and strengthen your implementation of the EBPs in your plan. So section 1 is retrospective. Section 2 moves us more towards a prospective look at this. And then finally, engaging families, caregivers, and other stakeholders. We want you to describe any new or expanded efforts. If you've already provided us with a list of the things that you typically do for parents, either in your original plan or in last year's progress report, you don't need to repeat that again. Just tell us about what you may be trying that's different this year. And then the legislation requires districts to provide evidence of increased or improved engagement with families and caregivers. Again, we're going to ask you to focus on, to the extent that you can with the data you have, on targeted student groups that are experiencing disparities. Now, that's the end of the business as usual, like what you would have done last year. I'm going to stop before I turn it over to Lola Choyinka, who's going to be talking about the Mass Leads work, to see if there are any questions that Moira hasn't answered or that have come up for you. Moira, was there anything in the chat that I need to address?
No, I don't see anything.
Great. In that case, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Lola. And Lola, just let me know when you want me to advance to the next slide.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Just to begin, as you see the title, Strengthening through Workforce Development, this section 4 is going to cover the Mass Leads Act. And we will collect information through your questions. So any questions you have, please drop them in the chat, and then we can answer them at the end of this section or at the end of the webinar as well. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview. In November, the Mass Leads Act was enacted, November 2024. And this really requires districts to create and develop the following 3 requirements. This is going to be an addition to, I believe it's going to be an addition to the SOA plan. And the first one is each district does have to create a diversity plan, and DESE will approve these plans. We will see them first before they go out. So main thing is to create a diversity plan. The second thing is that each district will appoint and hire a DEI officer or a diversity team, either or. The officer or team will advise the school committee on establishing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive school district. And the third aspect of this act is that employees and school employee members are required to attend diversity and implicit bias training. We wouldn't do it from here, but it's going to be provided, guidance will be provided through the Mass Commission Against Discrimination. So those are the 3 key things for K through 12 schools. Next slide, please. So this section is about strengthening the workforce. So DESI is really working on what guidance we're going to provide on implementing the various parts of the Act. One thing we're thinking of is the sample progress report, and including in there might be some sample answers on how to answer these questions. It is a new section of the SOA plan, and it is going to act as baseline set of data for us to use for future guidelines as we develop more guidelines. So really your answers to these questions will help uncover you guys for the 26-27 school year while we're finalizing guidelines. Slide, please. So there are 3 questions to answer. So the first one asks, as you can see, it says, what systematic barriers to hiring a diverse workforce does your district encounter? And please provide steps taken to address and eliminate these barriers. Second question, so they're total of 4. So second question is, what steps does your district take to identify, recruit, and hire employees at this time currently, and who are part of groups underrepresented in the educator workforce? The third question also applies to groups underrepresented in the educator workforce. So what strategies does your district currently use to develop, promote, and retain members of these groups? And the final question is, what is your district doing to promote equal opportunity in employment for educators? Next slide, please. So next steps moving forward with the Mass Leads Act is what DESI is going to do. We're going to publish guidelines, as I mentioned earlier, for the district's diversity plans. And this should help as you're writing in preparation for April 1st. So April 1st is the deadline. Oh, sorry. As part of the SOA plans, district will provide their final diversity plans April 1st, 2027. Sorry, I was going to say 26, it's 27. And then we will establish a reviewing process and give feedback no later than June 1st. So that gives some time. I'm hoping Darcy is on the call. I am not sure if she's here because there are some questions I can answer, some she would know better. I hope this summary was helpful. That's really all I have so far that we have in preparation for the Mass Leads Acts. Are there any questions so far?
I don't see Darcy.
Okay.
Oh, someone's asking to see the last slide again. Karen, can you go back?
The 4 questions? Yeah, the questions. Oh, is it cut off at the end? Oh, no, it's fine.
I'll just remind you that I will be sending this slide deck out tomorrow, and so you'll have, this slide will be in it, and so you'll have access to all these questions.
I'm sure we're going to follow pretty soon when we have more information about the Mass Leads Act. So this is just more of an introductory overview to kind of get you started thinking about, what's coming up. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lola. I just wanted to walk through for a moment some of the resources and supports. These will look pretty familiar to those of you who have been doing this for a while. We will be posting, so again, these resources and supports will be available on our updated website, and we expect that update to happen sometime next week, hopefully towards the beginning of the week. But I will be emailing you the progress update overview webinar slide, and the recording will be posted later in the week. There will be links to data resources. I'm going to recommend, if you haven't looked at it already, for folks to take a look at the Massachusetts Education to Career Research Data Hubs, data tools for educators. They include links to things that you are undoubtedly familiar with, like the DART tools and the links to Edwin, for those of you who have Edwin access to do more detailed and refined analyses. They also have some data stories and they try to parse them out by like are you a beginner working with data? Are you sort of a intermediate, and are you advanced? And so they break it out and they try to direct you towards resources that will make the most sense for you given your level of expertise. The student outcomes comparison dashboard, which some of you are familiar with from previous years. That's the one that has the heat map, the color-coded heat map. And that's not really intended for like this kind of progress monitoring, but I know some districts really like that heat map. That is also going to be, I'll post a link to it separate from the data tools for educators so that you can go right to that dashboard.
There are a couple of, I've put some in the chat as well, Karen. I'm going to just drop those links if you want to copy and paste them to your browsers or whatever.
Oh, great. Thank you, Moira. Again, I mentioned earlier, Lola and I are going to consolidate examples of what we think a good response to these, a useful response for your stakeholders would look like. That will be on the website next week. We have some updated instructions for completing progress updates in GEMS. That's more of a GEMS instruction guide for this particular piece of, for this application supplement, your SOA Plan Progress Report. I'm offering SOA office hours if you're, especially if folks are new. I had meetings with about 50 districts last year. And sometimes it's more like, hey, I'm new and I just want to, make sure I'm doing the right thing. Whatever the question, you can just click on that link. It'll take you to my calendar. It'll offer some time slots, and you just pick one that works well for you. And I'll send you a Zoom link and we can connect. There's also a dedicated SOA email address that's listed here, soaplans@mass.gov. If you have specific questions about the Mass Leads Act section, this is Lola's email, and you can write directly to her. Once progress reports are submitted in April, we usually get started pretty quickly afterwards, reading them in GEMS. You'll get notified via GEMS once your progress report is approved. But we'll follow up directly if we have any questions or need additional information. And as I said, last year, we had a lot of the feedback was around when districts didn't provide quite enough detail around the student groups for which they're trying to address gaps. And then typically in July, we make the SOA Plan progress reports publicly available in GEMS. So contact for questions about sections 1 through 3 of the SOA Plan progress report, reach out to me. You can either send an email to the one that's listed here. A lot of you have my email address. The only reason I suggest the SOA Plans mailbox, which I monitor, it's going to come to me, is that it won't get lost in like emails for other projects that I work on. It's very specific. I do try to get back to folks within like 24 to 48 hours. If I don't for some reason, feel free to ping me again. You can also, again, the scheduling link is here if you want to set up a time to just chat. And they're just sort of low-key conversations usually, and it's whatever you need to ask about. And then again, for questions about the workforce diversity section, I've given you Lola's email address again. And then I want to thank folks for joining us today and offer you one last opportunity to ask questions. And if there aren't any, I'm going to invite folks to, I'm going to say good afternoon, thank you, and reach out to me whenever with any questions.